from your discussion that you mentioned the importance of education and how quickly the education has changed. Number one, due to the digitalization program that was progressing and going slowly, but at the same time, pandemic brought this severe speed and agility that very quickly we had to learn to adjust and to incorporate. And I know that looking from the examples of the homeschooling or the schools that had to run the lectures on Zooms and get technical stuff, we experience a lot of challenges, and the challenges not only in the way of technology, in terms of not every school or not every institution had the required technology. We experience problems such as skills, where the teachers or the lecturers not all knew how to use that. But at the same time, we experience the individual households in terms of not every household that has enough laptops or logins or even a Wi-Fi in more remote areas. And that approach for digitalization, I guess pandemic brought a lot of challenges that we haven't thought that for digitalization to progress further and to grow further, there are other aspects of economy that we need to concentrate and work on in order for that digitalization to continue grow. So I guess from your point of view, what do you think is a potential education for scientific cooperation between Germany and other Baltic countries that we learned during the pandemic?
As I mentioned, the collaboration, one of the most important things would be to establish more collaborational structures. And so within the internationalization effort from the BMBF, the German Ministry of Education and Research focuses mainly on this point, to connect people, to connect institutions, to connect networks on both sides, to learn from each other. As you mentioned, we have several areas of action, so to say, which means on the one hand, yes, we have a heterogeneous situation in hardware, so to say, although nearly every school is slightly connected to internet in Germany. There's no problem in this area, but in all the households, there are not all everywhere laptops. It's not used to. They are not used to use laptops and pads and tablets within the educational area, and so for us, there's, so to say, no problem in delivering hardware into the country. We're now investing $500 million additional money in addition to the so-called Digitalpakt in schools, where we invest 3.5 billion euros in for all the infrastructure for all the digitalization at schools and at home. We have one important thing to change the mindset, which means when the pandemic starts in February or March last year and lockdown and homeschooling took place, nearly everyone says, okay, now we have the necessity for digitalization. And now there is not only the advantage, there is the necessity to do so. So to go on with education at home, to connect home to school using the internet and so on and so forth. And when the pandemic goes down in the summer, although nearly everyone knew that the problem will arise again in autumn, in the winter, all the system in Germany, you could see, falls back to so-called normality, which means we said, okay, this was a short period of digitalization at school, where teachers have to prepare their lessons in iServe or any other cloud version they use at school. And afterwards, in summer, as I saw from my daughter, the school fall back to the situation, said, okay, it's over, and now we can go back to the normal situation. Okay, we are using a little bit of laptops and a little bit of iPads or something like that. But this is just an additional joke and not the basic of our transformation, our society into a digital society.
Mm.
In autumn, in winter, we have in Germany a discussion when the numbers of the pandemic go worse or go bad again. We had the discussion in Germany: did we slept in summer? Why are we not prepared for better digitalization in the winter, or especially when we know the situation in March and April? And no, we didn't slept, but we thought that normality is without digitalization in the education, and going back to normal books, going back to normal education with a table, with a blackboard, so to say, and work in the normal way. Because resilience in the heads of teachers and as well pupils as well is on a level that not the digital way is normal. We are now in the situation in January of 2021 that the knowledge, the ideas are broadened in society, that we have to do a real transformation. And therefore we have a different situation. And as we said, as you said, what is the main topic of collaboration between the Baltic states and Germany in science and education? As I mentioned, these knowing about, seeing the advantages of digitalization within education and within society for the German society would help us to take nearly everyone by hand and go into this future, because it is a transformation. As we know, as you mentioned in the beginning, I was the CEO of different companies. We have the situation in society as well as in companies, the so-called change management process. And change management means always leaving the comfort zone. On leaving the comfort zone is especially the point we have to do in Germany, and therefore the examples from the societies and schools and universities in the Baltic states can help us to reduce the it's a little bit hard work, but to reduce the fear when going through the transformation process towards a new and then established way, and then to establish way of digital self-understanding within educational systems.
Absolutely. You mentioned quite a few very important points, and talking about this new norm or new reality and the mindset that people have of everything will go back to normal. The question is, the norm that it was before, it's no longer what it is now, and the new norm will have to be different. And you very correctly or very insightfully mentioned again the same topic of the mindset. And interestingly enough, this mindset topic was keep repeating with every speaker that we had today. And probably that is linked to the change management process, as you mentioned as well, where change is always brings uncertainty, and the things that we don't know or the things that we don't recognize, it brings that fear, it brings that unknown, it brings that, will I be able to, will I know how to, will we know how to live, transform, and run businesses in that new reality. So I guess from your point of view, how do you think the government can impact that mindset change, can work on those perceptual change programs in terms of educating society in the new norm? Or how can government assist with the social programs such as the mindset of that new vision, of that new tomorrow, of that new reality in our modern and digitalized world coming forward, that is impacting every single aspect, not only of our economy, but of our individual lives as well?
Okay. I
denke,
believe
dass
that
es wichtig, wir haben in
so, as
Deutschland
I
eine
said,
sehr
in Germany we
unhomogene
have a very
Situation. Das heißt, wir
non-homogeneous
haben innerhalb
situations.
der
If you look
innerhalb
at
von
the
Gesamtdeutschland Schulen,
country
die
as a
in
whole,
Bezug
we
auf
have schools who are
die
really
schon sehr, sehr
advanced
weit in
in
der
terms of
Digitalisierung sind.
digitization.
Und wir
And
haben
we have
Schulen, die mehr oder
schools
weniger am Anfang
who
stehen, die
are
zwar die
lagging
technische
behind
Ausstattung
that have
haben,
the
aber
technical
deren
equipment, but
Integration
its integration
in den
into
täglichen
the
Unterricht
everyday
noch, ich sag
lessons
mal, sehr
is
bruchstückhaft, wenn
very
überhaupt
fragmented, if
durchführbar.
even existed.
Wenn wir an eine Schule
If
selber
you go
gehen,
to
stellen wir
school,
ebenfalls wiederum eine sehr
then
inhomogene
again,
Situation fest. Wir haben
we
Lehrer,
have
die mehr oder
to
weniger wie
admit a
eine Art
very
Erweckungssituation
inhomogeneous
für sich empfinden
situation. Some
und sagen,
teachers
endlich
find
kann
this
ich
as an
hier, was weiß
awakening
ich, von PowerPoint
situations.
über YouTube,
Great,
über
I can
Filmchen,
use everything from PowerPoint,
Simulationen, über
YouTube,
alles Mögliche. Ich habe hier
simulations,
eine riesen neue
and all this
Digitalwelt zur
stuff is
Verfügung und
available
wir
for
haben
me from the
Lehrer,
digital
und die
world.
hat
And
es
we
immer
have teachers, and
gegeben,
they
die sagen,
always
was soll der
existed.
ganze
What the
Kram?
heck?
Wir haben auch früher
Also,
Griechisch
in the past,
oder
we taught
Latein
Latin
ohne
and Greek
Digitalisierung den
without
Schülern beigebracht.
digitization to
Ich
the
brauche das
school
alles
children,
nicht.
and I don't need that stuff.
Mm, absolutely, and I think the important aspect as well is again that perceptional change, right? Why there is such a difference in the perception. Some more abrasive towards change, some not. And my question is, are we continuing educating the skills of the
Ja,
teachers so they will
ja.
be more open for that?
Ich wollte erstmal die
I just wanted
Ausgangssituation
to
erläutern.
explain the starting
So, und wenn wir
situations, and
dieses
if
als
we take this as a
Ausgangssituation
starting
nehmen,
point,
dann werden wir
then
keine Methode
we
finden, die
will
one
not be
fits
able
all
to
in
find a
allen
method
Bereichen
that
eine
is
Lösung
one
findet.
fits all in all areas.
Yes, and we have no method one fits all. So we have to, when you ask about the methods to change the situation, that was what I thought was your question. Then we have to introduce programs for with respect to this inhomogeneous situation, because it would be a failure from my point of view to blame the teacher, the Greek and Latin teacher, so to say, which asked himself, why should I use all these digitalization methods? And therefore, we have to invest into best practice examples to help the ones to get into the future, and to say to the, so to say, English and Greek teacher, use what is useful for you, but dismiss what is not necessary. One thing which is important for all the teachers, for all the schools, is to change one important thing, starting from the so-called, was heißt Preußisch auf Englisch? Prussian way of education, means a teacher in the front who knows like God nearly everything, and the pupils sitting in the rows just listening and listening to the wisdom of the teacher, who is able to explain nearly the world and beyond. Is not the situation we have nowadays anymore. The teachers have to understand themselves more than learning coaches, to being a partner to the pupils, learning about the new things together. And this is what I saw in school in Tallinn, the German school in Tallinn, where they collaborated, and the teacher asked the pupils to work on themselves using all the digitalizational access to all nearly knowledge in the world, and they work together using the new means to elaborate the stuff they have to work within the lesson. And so the situation becomes more on one level, and this is for a lot of people, a lot of teachers, so to say, in Germany, a big thing, a big change. to say, okay, I perhaps know more than my pupils, but I know less than, so to say, the internet. And so I place myself outside of my pupils and work together with them in the, so to say, bibliothèque of the whole knowledge using the internet. So this is the way to argue that we have to have
Okay, I think you back up. You were stuck for a little bit. So thank you on that. I'm not sure. Can you hear my question? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay,
hear your question
wonderful.
now.
Yes. So you mentioned a very important fact about the way how the role of the teachers is now changing, where before the teachers were the one who was teaching the knowledge and teaching the facts. Now the role of the teacher became a guide on how to find the information, how to process the information, and how to use that information in order to resolve problems, to resolve issues, and to find a solution. So it's not only that we're changing the tools that we continue our education, we actually changing the entire approach to the education itself. It's no longer concentrated about chemistry or physics or this or that. It's more concentrated about tangible skills of how to work together, how to use technology, how to find the problems, and how to learn to solve the problems in a way. So do you think that this quick transformation that digitalization brought us, that actually pandemic enhanced very, very quickly, do you think that now this may lead to the reform in the education system, in how the curriculars would be formed or how the schooling programs would be formed? Do you think it's a big enough change to start changing the education system in that matter?
Yes, I think so. Because as I mentioned, the different situation in March, April this year, and in the end of the year, then it's then you see a lot of change within the school and within the educational system. So to say, when they thought about going back to normality in the summer, they see now that there is no normality like before, and they now, so to say, they agree. When you talk to them, nearly all of them agree that digitalization within education is an absolute necessity. Sometimes I have a little doubt that what they tell us is not the same they think, but I think they are all on the point that they now accept the necessity. And it's now for us from side of politics, the need to help them, not only to give the hardware, not only to provide all the infrastructure. It's necessary to help them that they do not lose their position, that they do not lose their Selbstverständnis, self-confidence in their role they had in past, and transfer it into the future. And so this will be the major necessity within the next half of a year to not only actualize the infrastructure, the hardware, so to say. It's also necessary to get more and more used to the new normality and to see that they have their essential role in this new normality, and to get them their self-confidence back after going through das Tal, the valley of discomfort, so to say, and therefore, and this is the main topic today. Therefore, looking at the solutions, for example, in Estland, would from my point of view, would help lots of them because they see what is possible when they go through this valley and use the thing on the other side.
Mm.
A few examples. Having all the data from pupils, from school, from all the processes going on, will help to plan good lessons, would help to see where are my pupils, what is their knowledge, what is their level of education, and so to say. Within Germany, we do not have this data. In Estonia, we have this data. Every parents can look to the database and see what is your child performing and how is your child performing. Sometimes it would be a little problem in Germany because the child would say, I do not want my parents to know everything without moderating it by myself. But it is, from my point of view, a necessity to plan the lesson from tomorrow, knowing what is the situation of my pupils at this moment. And therefore you have to have the data of what is their performance, what do they know, and this can be get from the system in Estonia, and especially for the teachers, for the schools. And just to give one example where some of our problems are, when we discussed in German Parliament the die Ausstattung, the equipment in school, how they are connected to internet, what is the infrastructure, how they bought all the laptops, all the tablets. Now we have provided, as I said, billions and billions of euros. We have in the moment only the data. What is the equipment? And sorry to say, this is it's a shame for me as a scientist. We only have the data from the 13th June the 13th of last year. And we are now collecting the data of the 21st of the 31st of December. And I think it will last for weeks to get all these data. What is the equipment in schools, and how do they increase their situation and implemented all the hardware, and what is working in our country. And when I saw X-Road and all the systems in Estonia, so to say, it was like in my company. I was in a big company in the 90s, which was developing medical techniques. And when I wanted to know where are our machines, where are all the employees, where are all our plannings, then I go into the database and I get it at real. I get it at now,
Live.
the data, and therefore there was no problem for me to derive, so to say, decisions on an evidence base of daily actuality. And this is the same we have to have in Germany in all parts of society. But this, I think, will be a long way, because, as I mentioned, we always start from the situation of data security and data safety. So collecting all this data is a big problem. But when the people see what is possible using artificial intelligence, by analyzing all these data in education, in science, in nearly every part of the society, then I think that the acceptance for data collecting or the usage of data in further developing our society would rise, and we do not always will see the risk in front. We will see more of the chances. Therefore, from my point of view, after visiting Estonia, I said, bringing together the people to see what is able, what is possible by using this data, would be easier. So to say, is like going to a kitchen and smelling the new meals will raise the appetite to get what's in there, and not only the fear that you do not know what is coming out of this kitchen. So go perhaps to a kitchen in another place to smell and to see what is cooked there, and then you say, okay, I want this on my table next day. And just to get this into society, I think it's just a picture, but I think it's pointed out what we have to do, giving the people the smell, the taste, or what is possible by using all these means, and therefore a collaboration between the Baltic states and Germany would be very helpful.
Absolutely. And I think you already mentioned several challenges that this EU 2050 agenda or digitalization agenda and modernization agenda already experiencing. So it's not only within the education sector to change the mindset, to train the teachers, the professors and the lecturers on the skills, but at the same time to change the entire system of the education, where the curricular is no longer the same. Curricular changes every single day based on the technology, based on the new realities. And that's not only the only challenge. The challenge is, if we are talking about the new norm is about homeschooling or the mixture between homeschooling and schools, that means the parents and the households needs to adapt, which means the parents' jobs and the organizations in which parents are working needs to adjust to this norm. Another challenge that you mentioned as well is in terms of how quickly the change is happening. And as you mentioned, this government's ability to adapt and be agile and be robust. And the fact that we still don't have in Germany, or even, in some areas of other Baltic countries, the statistics, the live data, as you mentioned, raw data coming in frequently, so we can have the reports, we can have the forecast on a daily basis based on a live data coming in. And in order to achieve that, there's a huge technical infrastructure digitalization programs that needs to happen. However, even though this challenge of the large digitalization GovTech problems within the government itself requires the changes in procedures, in operating models, and in the governments, we are still facing with the most complicated challenge, which is behavior change and that perceptional change. And when the change is so big as this, the success in it still lies with the people's belief of that vision of the future, and believe that the vision of the future brings benefits, as you mentioned. So how do you think we can tackle this philosophical in the way challenge about changing how that vision will look like, so the people understand that on the positive note, pandemic brought all of this in a very fast speed, but at the same time, the reality is that the reality has changed and we need to adapt to that, and probably we will not go back to as it was. So how do you think that individuals or community or even the government can actually work with that sense of changing and accepting the reality has changed now?
Can be reduced to one sentence: the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Which means that we have to have all these people using it, tasting it, and getting in touch with it. If we always like a priest tell them that this is good and this will change their way in their life in a good way, I think we will not succeed in the end. To take them by the hand and go with them through the forest of fear, whistling and saying, okay, on the other side, there will be a sunny side of life, so to say. This is, so to say, in easy words, the necessity. To show them, to help them, for example, to construct areas of safety where they can improve themselves, where they can üben. practice, where they can practice the new methods, whether without being seen, and to get new strengths and get further education. I think this is the absolute necessity, and we can uh, uh, think of titles of new programs and so on. In the end, it's this very easy thing. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Just we can tell the people how good this pudding is, and we can tell them how big the possibilities with this pudding is, and so on and so forth, if they do not taste it. If they do not taste it and see in the end, well, this is another pudding than I have in the last 50 years, but it tastes as well, it tastes good, and I can use it, and especially my methods are broadened. I can do more. I can use the knowledge of the internet. I can use more new methods of transferring methods. I can simulate things just for the pupils, so to say, that they see the relation between things, and so on and so forth. All these things, they have to see that, they have to taste it. And so we are quite good in Germany writing concepts. I was writing concepts for digitalization within education since the 80s of last century. And we wrote concepts after concepts after concepts. And we always discussed several things: bring your own device, we discussed, this is a necessity to give every pupil a tablet, or is it a problem? Will they use the infrastructure for charging their handies and tablets in school, as I saw in Tallinn, just to play problematic games in schools? We are always discussing all these risks and changes for decades. We have to taste the pudding. We have to see it. We have to look at. From my point of view, it would be a good thing to nearly put every teacher, so to say, once into a biosystem where all these things work, just to help him and to see what is possible. And afterwards, he can transfer it into his reality at his school with his pupil, with his or her pupils. And therefore, this is at the end a very easy thing. Taste it, see it, reduce the fear, and getting to a new self-understanding by using all these new methods and machines and software and whatever. We had this, so to say, in science. Before I go to a German parliament, I was a scientist developing hearing aids. You know, these little machines which help deaf people to hear. When we have the digital revolution within the mid-90s, which means we go from analog techniques to digital techniques, lots of our scientists were very afraid, because they knew how to build the analog systems in the past, but they do not think what is new digital stuff all about, what we should do, and so on and so forth. And so the first aids we had were just the copy of analog machines into digital machines, with no improvement, with no additional benefit. And then 10, 15 years later, all the scientists, all the developers see what is able with digitalization now, which algorithms are possible. And when they saw these possibilities, they get euphoric. They would never think about having analog systems back. They always say, okay, go to a future together. But so to say, the proof of the pudding was in the eating. They just had to see what is possible and had to play with it and had to make their own experience what is possible.
It's so good. It's so good. The pudding is definitely, we will be quoting that on our Facebook. It's so true. Before we end, I really want to ask you the last philosophical question, as your expertise is amazing, and I think we can discuss here for another hour, but let's wrap it up. So I wanted to ask you as well, more, I guess, philosophical question. We are witnessing more and more for individualized approach, individualized treatment in medicine, individualized tablets for specific illnesses and diseases. And at the same time, we are witnessing the need of individualized approach for individual pupil, individual skill set. So do you think that individualized approach means the change and reform in the system itself, the systems where we have preschool, we have elementary school, we have gymnasiums, and et cetera, where are very specific groups of, let's say, studying, the way how studying are done and the way how the information is done, moving into more individualized. And I guess that way the entire structure of the education system should be changed and should be adapted. And in a sense, education system haven't changed for the last 500 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess that's a very big philosophical question. Is there actually a need? Is there actually benefits for making it so individualized and individual? Or what are the challenges as well in that sense, and how we can actually transition from that very structural system based on lectures, based on information, into a very individualistic system based on the skill sets, based on personalities, based on the problem solving, that I guess will challenge the entire centralized governing structure of that we have in education. What are your viewpoints?
Yes, I think digitalization gives us the possibility of fördern, support the pupils on a very individual level. And I will think this will change the structure of the school system as well. But there will be a differentiation in the future as well, because within the Entwicklung, within the development of a pupil, you will see some of them who are interested, so to say, in Latin or Greek, or who are interested in mathematics or in chemistry or biology. And so I think individualization within learning is one thing, and the way in which we want to go more in the academic area, or more in a more handcrafted situation or whatever, should be in the school system as well. And so I think the school system will change. It will change because the way we learn and the way we teach will fundamentally be different in the future, as we discussed within the last half an hour. But the necessity to cluster pupils within schools or within over schools will be necessary in the future as well, not to divide the pupils, but to give them their individual chances, and to help them also within groups. And because not every human is different, and therefore we have to not only go down to the situation individualization within one system. I think it is a necessity to cluster it, and so different structures of school will be also there in the future. So to say, gymnasium but I think they will change in the way they work. But the question, if you want to work more theoretical, or you want to work more with your hands and more within praxis, so to say, should be abgebildet, should be combined within the school system, should be built in within the different
reflected
areas
I
of
think.
school systems.
So I think we can add on end our conversation on this beautiful note is that we should keep the best things from the past and we should add another good things from the future and kind of combine two things together from what we learn from the systems that are still working and works from the past, and at the same time adjust and add the modern change to that and move to that new vision of the future as a combined model of both.